What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Hoopers Lounge, and we are now less than 1 week away from NBA tip-off. Very exciting time, and to finalize our series of prediction episodes, we're going to be predicting each series of the 2025-26 playoffs. We had regular season predictions in our last episode, where you heard our 8 playoff teams in each conference, and now we're going to be essentially going through our expectations and how we think the playoffs will play out this year. Should be an interesting debate. I think we're going to have different champions, so that should be an interesting debate at the end of the episode. But before we get into that, we've had a lot of NBA news over the past couple days, but even the last week, where there's been a ton of NBA news. And the biggest piece of news is the injury to LeBron James. He has suffered irritation with his sciatica nerve, and he is expected to be out at least 4 to 6 weeks. Huge loss initially for the Lakers and for the league as a whole to not have LeBron playing for the first month of the season. I have dealt with sciatica personally before. I would not wish it upon anybody. It is painful, it is tough to move, and it can linger. So I'm hoping the best for LeBron. I'm hoping that this can be fully recovered in 6 weeks, because sciatica is not something to mess with. This could be something that lingers and bothers LeBron throughout the entire season.
Yeah, when I saw the injury, I just thought to myself that they need to get LeBron 100% at his age, because he's definitely more important in the second half of the season than he is the first 4 to 6 weeks. So I'm glad they're not going to try and rush him out there. I'm glad they're going to give him his time that he needs in order to come back, as good as possible. But I'm interested to see, like you said, if this thing lingers, could we be fast tracking to LeBron's retirement due to unforeseen injuries? I think that's something that the Lakers and LeBron are definitely considering, just to think about the end of the year and have LeBron, maybe not come back next year because of something like this. So this is definitely a story to keep an eye on throughout the season. I hope that LeBron does not, I hope he comes back fully healthy. I hope he's ready to dominate. But if this thing lingers, like you said, it could be the end for LeBron.
Yeah, and that's for a 40-year-old to deal with sciatica. That's already a lot. And I mean, this is LeBron James we're talking about. He's been in the league since the day I was born, right? I've never watched an NBA without LeBron James in it. So just seeing that this one of the greatest figures of all time in basketball slowly succumbing to father time, it does kind of suck. And I've never been the biggest LeBron fan, but it sucks seeing this incredible talent just kind of fizzle out with injuries. I hope he's able to recover and, well, he's not going to be in his prime, but play like the LeBron James that we know and have watched for the last 2 decades plus. And this should also mean that Luka Doncic will be the focal point, the heart and soul of the entire Lakers offense without his co-star LeBron. And it should be interesting to see what kind of stats Luka can put up in the first month, the first 6 weeks of the season, and whether or not the numbers he puts up can get him into MVP contention.
I think he's already probably an MVP contention, even if LeBron was healthy. I think that the numbers he's going to put up are going to be video game-like in the first month of the season. And I do think, however, that the Lakers will struggle to win as many games without LeBron. I think that he helps, so many players just be better than they actually are. Not that Luka doesn't do the same, but having two great, all-time facilitators out there, I think that will hurt the entire team as a whole, obviously. And I expect the Lakers to get off to a rougher start than we had originally anticipated.
Agreed on that. And yeah, Luka is an MVP candidate with or without LeBron. Just without LeBron James, their ball is going to be in Luka's hands a lot more. He's going to have a lot more opportunities to score and play make rather than if he was sharing the ball with another co-star. His numbers, like you said, should be video game-like. A 30-point triple-double average is not out of the realm of possibility for Luka. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Lakers go. How do they handle LeBron James? Whether they're going to load manage him throughout the season. How much of James are we going to see throughout the regular season? A lot of storylines to follow surrounding the Lakers.
Yeah, I think if he's healthy, he's gonna play. I don't necessarily think they're gonna like load manage him, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I don't think LeBron wants to be load managed. I think he's gonna, if he wanted to be load managed, I think he would have retired. He's here to play, and if he's healthy, I think he'll give it 110%.
Yeah. But all the best to LeBron and his recovery. We hope we get to see him at least close to his normal self throughout the season. And our next piece of news that we're going to get into revolves international basketball and Team USA. It was recently announced that Miami Heat head coach Eric Spoelstra was named Team USA's head coach, replacing Steve Kerr. And I'm personally a huge fan of that. I think aside from Greg Popovich, Spoelstra has been the best coach in the league of the 21st century. And he was an assistant coach on Steve Kerr's Olympic staff, and now he's getting a chance to run the team. And I mean, I don't think the coach of Team USA is necessarily a huge factor just because of the sheer amount of talent that Team USA is always guaranteed to have. I mean, the players are more or less most of the time going to figure it out for themselves. But I do think Spoelstra is a coaching upgrade over Kerr. I don't think this move will hurt or hinder Team USA at all. And yeah, we'll see what happens in the 2026 FIBA World Cup.
I completely agree with everything you just said, and I'm a Warriors fan. I love Steve Kerr. I think he's a great head coach, one of the best head coaches of all time. But Spoelstra is better than him. Plain and simple, I think Spoelstra is the better coach. And like you said, I don't see a possibility where this hurts Team USA. They might not get too much better because of the talent that they bring in, to every international tournament. But Spoelstra is going to get the most out of those players. I think what we saw from Devin Booker out of the Olympics, I think Spoelstra was able to get a lot more of that type of performances out than Steve Kerr would be able to do. But the top tier talent's going to be there. They're going to ball out regardless of if you or me were the head coach. Like, those guys are good enough to coach themselves. So I think this is a minor move. It's a headline, cool, but I don't think it does too much from a basketball perspective.
Yeah, this isn't anything earth-shattering. Like you said, I think you or I could have coached a 2024 Olympic team with Steph, LeBron, and KD, and we could have taken the gold home. The coach, when you have that many world-class players on one team, the coach is just kind of there for moral support. I mean, Stephen Curry is getting double-teamed every play, and he's still going to shoot it. That's not a coaching decision. That's just, we have the greatest shooter on the floor, the greatest shooter in the world, in the history of basketball. Give him the ball. It doesn't take a genius head coach to come to that conclusion.
Yeah, I agree. And Kerr has been using that strategy for his entire coaching career. Just give it to Steph and get out the way. So I think you or me could have came up. Yeah, I mean, it's unstoppable to this point and still going. So good for Team USA, though. I think Spoelstra, of all the assistant coaches, I would have wanted him to take the job from Kerr, I think, out of all the other ones. So I think that was a good decision. And anytime Team USA is in international basketball, they're heavy, heavy favorites.
Yeah, it's essentially how Brazil was in soccer in the late 1900s. They would go into international tournaments, and it would be a shock if they didn't win. That is how Team USA basketball is. Now, just like Brazil, the gap between the best and the middle of the pack has decreased. And we're seeing these international teams start to compete and challenge the US, which, first of all, I love for the sport of basketball. I think it is phenomenal. And if we can ever get to a point where the FIBA World Cup is as big as the NBA season, I think the sport will be in a truly incredible place. I hope that I get to see something like that in my lifetime. I think it would be awesome. I lost my train of thought. I had a second point to follow on that, but Max, anything to add?
No, I love international basketball, and it's also way more fun for us, even as Americans, when it's competitive. Like, nobody likes, beating someone when they're down. Like, so it's nice to have some competition, and it's nice to prove that we still are the best, even though the rest of the world is certainly getting better at the sport of basketball.
Yeah. But when the day comes that the USA isn't a surefire favorite to win an international tournament, I think that's only going to do great things for the sport of basketball and increase the popularity of the sport worldwide.
I don't know when that'll be. Probably not for another 2-3 decades, but maybe not ever. I don't know.
2-3 decades. I think a decade tops, seeing the international talent that the last five MVPs in the NBA have been born outside of the USA, right? And yes, the US is going to get an influx of talent every year, but the superstars, the best of the best in the sport, are international born. We have Giannis in Greece, Jokic in Serbia, Shea in Canada, Wemby in France. And that's not including teams like South Sudan, who gave the USA a challenge in the qualifying stages, right? They don't have an elite MVP level talent on their roster, but they still made LeBron, Steph, and KD sweat out the win. I think the world is catching up to the US very quickly, and I don't think it'll be that long of a time before we see another team kind of emerge as a talent as a basketball powerhouse. And if I were to predict a country that would emerge, it would either be Canada or France. Those are the two that are producing the most consistent top tier star talent in the NBA right now, aside from the US, obviously. I mean, France just had back to back number one overall picks with Wemby and Risha Shea. Canada has won the most recent MVP with Shea. They have Jamal Murray on their team. They are star studded at the guard position. And in this upcoming draft, there's actually a guy from Mexico named Kareem Lopez, who is expected to be the first Mexican born player drafted in the first round. So just that right there is proof of the game's expanding popularity internationally. And I mean, give it another decade for these established international stars to, I don't know, set an example, be a role model for kids in their country, and the NBA could very well be a global sport by the end. Give it another decade by 2035.
I agree. I think the NBA is trending internationally, just with how many people they're bringing in. But from an international tournament perspective, I still think the U.S. will be a juggernaut for the next 20 years. Because, like you said, all the best players may be international, but when they go to play for their countries, they're playing with a bunch of people that only play international basketball. And the NBA is the best league in the world for a reason. So I think guys like, for example, like the U.S., their roster was filled out with guys like Drew Holiday and Derek White and Bam Adebayo. Those guys would be the second best player on Giannis's Greek team. So, and that just speaks to the depth of the United States. The top tier talent may be in the international's favor right now, and I'm not disagreeing with that. But from top to bottom, roster wise, the U.S. is going to run international tournaments for a while, I think.
Agreed. They still clear, but the gap is closing, and I think it's only going to continue to close. I mean, now that we had the best of the best outside of the world, I think it's only a matter of time before they get the depth to, I guess, compete consistently. But that's a debate for another day. Let's move on to our next piece of news, and this is something that just actually broke today. The Sacramento Kings signing former MVP Russell Westbrook to a 1-year, $3.6 million contract. Very happy to see Russ get at least one more year in the league. He is a player that plays with an intensity matched by almost no one. It's thrilling as a basketball fan to watch him play his heart out each and every time he steps on the floor. And I'm excited to see Russ play. Speaking from the Kings' perspective, I don't really think this moves the needle very much, if at all. Russ is past his prime, and he's not going to give you that 30-point triple-double that he was known for in his time with the Thunder. And the Kings just look like they're making moves that are constantly keeping them mediocrity. I do not understand what the Kings' plan this offseason was at all.
I think I like that point about mediocrity, because my thought when they traded for Russ, or when they signed him, was to trade him mid-season for picks or for younger talent. I think Russ is going to be a target of many top title contenders come the trade deadline, of teams that need a backup point guard or a veteran on their lineup. Some teams I'm looking at just on this piece of paper that I think could be a suitable trade for him are Orlando, Atlanta, Boston might need him if they need more firepower. Those three teams I expect to be competing in the East, at least right now. And Russ, I think, fits the mold for all those teams to either A, come off the bench, or start if an injury occurs. So I don't see him being a Sacramento King for very long. And I expect them to deal him at the deadline or before. that was kind of my initial reaction to this move.
Yeah, I disagree with that because yes, some teams like the Magic and the Hawks and the Celtics, like you all said, could use a backup point guard. They could use that guard depth, but if they felt like Westbrook was that needle mover, they had multiple months to sign him. I mean, free agency started in July. We're now in the middle of October. You had a full 3.5 months to sign a former MVP if you felt like he would have contributed to your team. And I mean, he's not expensive at all. $3.6 million is a very, very modest amount. Okay, relatively speaking, in terms of NBA money, $3.6 million is a relatively modest amount of money annually. And I mean, all three of those aforementioned teams could have easily ponied up if it felt like Westbrook would have helped them. So, barring some kind of injury to their guards, I don't think Westbrook is going to get traded. I think he is going to stay with the Kings this year. And I also think this is Westbrook's last year in the NBA. There were a lot of reports throughout the offseason that EuroLeague teams or teams in China were offering Westbrook a absolute boatload of money to go play for them. And I think if Russ comes off the bench this year for a Kings squad that I'm not expecting to be particularly competitive, then I think the money is going to start speaking to him more than the allure of coming off a bench for a play-in team.
Interesting. I think Russell Westbrook will want to compete for NBA championships more than money. I mean,
agreed. But he's not winning a championship with the Kings.
Which is exactly why he'll ask to be traded mid-season. I don't think he wants to be in Sacramento. I know he signed the contract, but I think this is he's going to get a lot of playing time in Sacramento, I think, and he's going to try and impress the other 29 teams in the league to come trade for me in December or January. I also don't think Russ is going to China. I can't see that. He's too much of an icon in the NBA world, and he doesn't have a ring yet. He's not retiring before, or he's going to retire before he goes overseas and stops playing NBA level basketball. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, Westbrook doesn't have leverage in any potential trade negotiation, though. He signed a one-year deal, and if a team is willing to give up assets for him mid-season, they only have him for half a year. He's a rental, and then he's a free agent again, where he's free to sign anywhere he pleases. He has no leverage. I don't think he's in a position where even if he shows out, he can't be like, okay, Kings, trade me. I want to go contend. Teams are going to want to give up assets for a half year of a past prime Westbrook, and Westbrook does not have the ability to demand a trade. We have seen NBA players go to China post prime, such as Dwight Howard. We also seen players like DeMarcus Cousins go to Puerto Rico and play. I mean, seeing former NBA superstars go play in leagues outside of the NBA is not unheard of. And at a certain point, money talks. I don't know how much this talked about contract in China was for what Russell Westbrook, but at a certain point, there is going to be a number that he's offered that he just cannot say no to. And yeah, Russ is obviously one of the most competitive people in the NBA. He wants a ring more than anything, but he's not going to win with the Kings. And if he can't get his way to a contender next season, I don't see him retiring from the sport. I see him continuing to play, whether it's in the NBA or overseas.
All right, I'll agree to disagree with you on that. I think he's an NBA player for life, and I don't think any amount of money will drag Russell Westbrook away from competing for an NBA title. That's just the way I see it. But last but not least, speaking of going overseas before retiring, last bit of news that I learned about an hour ago when Alex told me is that Giannis Antetokounmpo, I don't know who said this or what source had this, but he plans to play international ball after the NBA and retire as a member of the Greek League. I'm not sure how that all works. Alex, as a Bucks fan, are you concerned that he may leave the NBA earlier than he should to go play international basketball?
Well, yes, it is concerning. Giannis is my favorite player, and I would love to be able to watch him play until he's age 38, 39, 40 year. But Giannis is also a player that is heavily reliant on his athleticism in his NBA career. And I think by the time he hits that age, that 37, 38 year, around that range, he's going to be past his prime, and he's not going to be this two-way force that we know him as today. And I think at that point in his career, yeah, he's going to want to go home. He's going to want to be with his family, who, by the way, his family has moved to Greece, leaving him alone in Milwaukee. So that might be another factor as to why he wants to play in Europe. But I think Giannis is going to sign one more big contract in the NBA, and that's going to be his final one before he goes to play in Europe.
Okay. I don't really have many thoughts on this because I just learned about it before we started recording. I would love to see Giannis, obviously, in the NBA for his career, but the family point makes a lot of sense with his family leaving America, maybe wanting to go join them, live with them, and play basketball in Greece. That makes a lot of sense. So with that being said, we will now move into our playoff predictions. And speaking of the Bucks, we'll start in the East. So Alex, I'll let you go through your first round matchups and predictions for the Eastern Conference.
Okay, so if you didn't watch our regular season predictions, my first round matchups are Cleveland versus Atlanta as the 1 versus 8, New York Knicks versus Philadelphia at 2 versus 7, Orlando versus Milwaukee at 3 versus 6, and Celtics versus Pistons, sorry, a bit of a spoiler, Pistons versus Celtics at 4v5. And I have the first 3 seeds winning all of their series. I have Cavs over Hawks, Knicks over Sixers, Magic over Bucks. But I have the 5 seed Celtics beating the 4 seed Pistons. And I think this just comes down to playoff experience. The Celtics' entire core has had a championship run together. Well, the Celtics core minus Tatum this year. But that core is still largely the same core that won a championship just 3 years ago now. And the Pistons just made the playoffs last year for the first time in a while. Now, the Pistons, I do think, are the more talented team. But in a 7-game series, where you're going against head to head, I think the Celtics are going to be stronger at adjusting to the talent of the Pistons, game planning to stop Cade Cunningham, and will emerge on top. Other than that, I think the first round of the East is going to be chalk. Cavs will win as the 1 seed, Knicks will win as a 2 seed, and Magic I have as my 3 seed, and I think they will beat the Bucks in the first round.
Okay, so I'll go through my matchups real quick. My 1-8 is Knicks Pistons, a rematch from last year. My 2-7 is Cleveland and Philadelphia. My 3-6 is Orlando Milwaukee, and then my 4-5 is Celtics Hawks. And very similar to you, I have some chalk, except for one major upset. I picked upsets because I love upsets, and I think that if this team is fully healthy in the playoffs, you don't want to see them as a 2 seed. And I have Philadelphia beating the Cavs in the first round. I think that with a fully healthy Philadelphia Sixers team, they could match up very well with Cleveland. And Cleveland has been a team in the last couple of years that they just don't perform well in the playoffs. Whether it's, Donovan Mitchell having off games and then turning around and going for 45, or Darius Garland being super inefficient, and Evan Mobley, struggling to find his game in the playoffs. I think Cleveland lacks a little bit of depth, and their stars have not performed very well in the playoffs so far outside of Donovan Mitchell. So, with a healthy Joel Embiid, he would be, in my opinion, the best player in that series. A healthy Paul George, a healthy Tyrese Maxey, a healthy Jared McCain, a future Rookie of the Year in VJ Edgecombe, leading the way off the bench. I think Philadelphia could beat Cleveland in the first round, and I have predicted that. So that's my one upset. Other than that, I have Knicks, Celtics, Magic, a little chalk advancing, but Philadelphia is my big upset in the first round of the playoffs.
I was severely considering taking Philadelphia upset in the first round as well, because like you said, if the team is healthy, I think they can match up with just about anybody in the league in terms of a talent standpoint. Again, health is a big if. However, I think that the Cavaliers would match up with a healthy Sixers team better than just about any team in the league. I mean, the star big man duo of Mobley and Allen will do as good of a job as anybody can of defending Embiid. I'm not sure Embiid is particularly guardable at all, but if anybody can, it is going to be that big man duo. And I think the Cavs do have a advantage in the guard area with Garland and Donovan Mitchell, and in the wing department with guys like Max Strus and DeAndre Hunter and Isaac Okoro. I think that if the Cavs Sixers were to, I think the Sixers would not want to see the Cavs in the first round. I think they would much rather see the Knicks, which is the first round matchup I have, or any other team in the East besides the Cavs. And I did have the Knicks winning, but yeah, I was really considering taking the Sixers. I just could not bank on a healthy Sixers team.
Yeah,
based on what we've seen in the last half
that's
decade.
fair. I do think though there comes a point in time where like injuries happen to everyone. I get that, but there's got to be a point in time where they're just healthy. Like they get hurt every year, so it's got to flip for them at some point. And one thing I want to say about Cleveland too, I think they do match up well with a lot of teams. But in the playoffs, people just attack Darius Garland on defense. Like, it doesn't matter who he's guarding. Darius Garland is a defensive liability in the same sense that we talk about Luka and Trae Young and all the other elite guards that don't play defense. Darius Garland is the same. And he's just not as good at offense as those other guys. And I think that in a matchup with Tyrese Maxey and Paul George and Jared McCain and VJ Edgecombe, double team Embiid all you want in the post. But we don't care. Tyrese is going to cook Darius Garland, or we'll switch Paul George on him and get him in the post. There comes a point in time where I think the Cavs need to consider maybe moving on from Garland because, again, Mobley is transitioning into their second option on offense. Jared Allen is a staple on defense. You cannot lose a guy like that. And Donovan Mitchell is obviously the face of the franchise right now. And the odd man out is Garland, who in the past 2 seasons has been picked on in the playoffs by every team they've played against. So that was kind of another part of my thought process is, yes, the big men match up with Embiid really well, but I think the guards for Philadelphia would be able to get whatever shot they wanted against the guards of Cleveland. And that was just, I think that series probably goes 6 or 7. Like, there's no sweep happening. But the Philadelphia, healthy, I'll take them over Cleveland in an upset in the first round.
Right. Bold take right off the bat, but not one that I hate at all, especially when you have a former MVP with Joel Embiid on your team. I do agree with you about Darius Garland. I think he is becoming the odd man out on this Cleveland roster. I view him as kind of a discount Trae Young. He's a little bit worse at everything Trae Young is, including defense, which Trae Young is already really bad at. So that's saying something. And if the Cavs were to suffer another disappointing early playoff exit, I could see them ready to move on from Garland, who has had trouble staying healthy the past couple of seasons as well.
Yeah, completely agree. All right, so I'll move into the second round matchups now, where I have the Knicks and the Celtics. Oh, cinema in the second round. Absolute electricity in that series. And then I would have Orlando against Philadelphia in another very interesting series that I think could go the distance. And I did it again. I took Philadelphia to beat Orlando in the second round.
Wow.
I do think that if I had them beating Cleveland, I can't really sit here and justify them not beating Orlando because I do think Cleveland is better than Orlando. Orlando, though, their guards actually would defend Philadelphia's a lot better than Cleveland's would. And I don't know if anyone on Philadelphia can guard Paolo Banchero. So, very interesting series. I think that one would be tough. Orlando coming off a series win against Milwaukee. You know, they're feeling good about themselves. They're thinking Eastern Conference Finals are better, and in comes Joel Embiid to just give them 35 a night on Wendell Carter. Like, come on. Stop. I mean, Embiid's just coming in, just rolling, jogging up the court, probably getting hurt, coming out 35 a night, easy. So I have Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference Final, which feels insane to say out loud, but I do. I have them in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then I have them facing the team you have them facing in the first round, the Knicks. I think New York is the best team in the East this year. And Boston's going to give them hell. I think this series could go 6 or 7. But I'll take Jalen Brunson over Jaylen Brown in a 1-on-1. And the Knicks would also have home court in that series. I think that would play a major role. So give me the Knicks and probably the Sixers in 7, both semifinal matchups.
Sixers to the conference finals is bold, and I think you laughing the entire time while you were talking about it shows just how much confidence or how little confidence you have in that take.
They have to be healthy. They have to be healthy.
They do have to be healthy. Embiid is going for his first conference finals appearance. Actually, the only MVP in NBA history to have yet to make a conference finals is Joel Embiid. He's looking to leave that dubious club this season. I have, for my second round matchups, I have Cavs versus Celtics and the Knicks versus the Magic. And I have the Cavs beating the Celtics. I think this will be a very close series, but I think this is the year the Cavs finally break through. I'm expecting Mobley to once again improve his offensive game as he has every single year of his career thus far. Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs is a walking 25, 30 points per game. He's one of the more consistent scorers. Excuse me. Jarrett Allen, one of the best two-way centers in the league, can give you a double-double on the offensive side while locking down the paint on the defensive side. And I think they do match up really well with the Celtics. Once again, I'm talking about matchups. I just love the Cavs' two big, two guard starting lineup. Even though we hadn't seen much postseason success, I would credit that to a lack of experience more than a lack of talent. Now that the Cavs have achieved that one seed, have achieved that playoff run, they have a playoff series win together. I think they're going to improve in the playoffs now that they know how to, now that they kind of know what to expect when that time comes. Now, Knicks Magic. I have the Magic beating the Knicks. And I don't know how, I don't feel great about this. It's going to be strongly dependent on how good Paolo Banchero is. I think he is going to be sensational. I think he's going to establish himself as a top 10 player in the league this season. And because of that, I think the Magic will have the best player on the court in that series. I will have Paolo over Jalen Brunson. Now, the Knicks do have more depth. They have more star power because I would take Cat over Franz Wagner. I would take OG Anunoby over, I don't know, Jalen Suggs. Is that the Magic's third best player at this point?
Desmond Bane.
But I think that is a bit true. I forgot they traded for him. But I would still take OG Anunoby over Desmond Bane. But there comes a certain point where Paolo Banchero is going to make that superstar leap. I don't think it's going to be in the regular season. I think he's going to make that leap in the playoffs and carry the Magic to their first Eastern Conference Finals since Dwight Howard was a member.
Gotcha. I love that. Again, upsets. Great for the podcast. Great for the morale here. The one thing that scares me with the Knicks Magic matchup is I think Mikal Bridges and OG, from a defensive perspective, actually match up really well with Paolo and Franz. I think those two would be able to not stop them completely, but frustrate them enough to be taking bad shots, getting them in foul trouble perhaps, and forcing them to get out of games, like OG attacking Paolo on the other end of the court and getting him two quick fouls. I mean, bang, there's one game already for the Knicks. So I think that wing matchup is actually a lot closer than maybe people could be willing to give them credit for. And Desmond Bane, again, he's the ultimate X factor this year. That trade's either going to look like the greatest thing ever or that they overpaid for a role player. I mean, that's what this trade could be. And I would favor the Knicks in that series, but I love that you're taking a shot on a young team that has the potential to be really good.
And like I said, it comes down to how good Paolo can perform in the playoffs. I agree with your point. I do think the Knicks wings would match up well with at least Franz Wagner, who's more of a slasher and mid-range jump shooter. But I think the physicality and the athleticism that Paolo has can make him a nearly unguardable force if he's able to put it all together. Now, Paolo in the playoffs, we've seen him kind of settle for a lot of jump shots. We've seen him try to become a perimeter player rather than this 6'8", 260-pound ball of muscle playing like LeBron James and taking the ball constantly to the rim. I think if Paolo can do that in the playoffs, then he'll be nearly unguardable. You're going to have to either foul him or let him get an easy layup. He's already one of the most physically dominant young players in the NBA. And I think as his body matures and as his game grows, and he realizes that, hey, nobody can stop me on a drive, I only see good things for Paolo Banchero's career. I think he's going to be a superstar sooner than later.
And if I was the coach of the Knicks and I was watching Paolo drop 40 on us, I would, pat him on the back and tell him keep going, because then your coaching mindset shifts to let's just stop everyone else. Paolo's not going to outscore our entire team. And that's kind of another question mark I have with Orlando is if we can stop Franz and we can stop Desmond Bain, it doesn't matter how many points Paolo's scoring.
Yeah, but you could also make that argument for the Magic. I mean, they have Jalen Suggs, one of the best defensive guards in the league right now, who, excuse me, will do as good of a job as anybody at containing Jalen Brunson.
Okay, but I think Cat and OG and Mikal as a trio have a lot more answers to opposing teams' defenses than Desmond Bain, Jalen Suggs, and Franz Wagner. And so there comes a point in time where you literally you play a 5v4 and Paolo, he's not going to score every possession. It's not possible. We've seen teams do this with multiple. Like I just think of, the 2018 Cavs is a bad example because LeBron's LeBron. But if teams had told themselves, like what the Warriors did to the 2018 Cavs in the finals, they let LeBron go absolutely stupid, but no one else on that team did anything. And I know this Orlando roster, top to bottom, is better than the 2018 Cavs, but I'm just using that comparison to if you allow Paolo to just go one-on-one and feed for himself, don't let the other guys get involved, I think that's a formula that would help the Knicks tremendously, or any other team going up against Orlando in the postseason.
Okay, that's a fair point. I'll give you that one. But I am fascinated at what you have between your Knicks and Sixers series in the conference finals. I want to hear what you have to say about that.
So another iconic rivalry, Philadelphia versus New York, should make for some great, television, just from the scraps and the Karl Anthony Towns versus Embiid and the, Jalen Brunson versus Tyrese Maxey. So many matchups. Paul George versus Mikal Bridges. So many matchups in this Eastern Conference Finals. But this is where the Sixers run ends. I do have New York going to the NBA Finals this year. I think that they are going to make a move for a third person this season. And I've been saving that. I think this roster can win in the first round. I think this roster can win in the second round. But imagine if they traded for Zion Williamson. I'm telling you, it's happening. That is my bold prediction for the 2025 season, is that the Knicks will trade for Zion Williamson. And that will get them over the hump. And they will make the NBA Finals. What do you think?
Okay, my question is, with what assets? They don't have any first-round picks that they control. They gave them all to the Nets for Mikal Bridges. They don't have great depth on their team. They would have to part ways with Karl Anthony Towns or OG Anunoby in order to land Zion.
Yeah, I think, again, I haven't worked out all the details of the trade. All right, I'm still, thinking about that. But I'm just kind of fantasizing about the Knicks going after another superstar. I thought they were going to go after Kevin Durant in the offseason, and they didn't. And that was disappointing. Now I think they shift their focus to a guy who should not be playing in New Orleans anymore. I'm sorry, he should not be playing in New Orleans anymore. That experiment's failed, and they need to rebuild. And so you trade Zion for whatever the Knicks are willing to pay. And if that means giving up Mikal or OG, maybe, I think, like I said, this roster is good enough to get you to the conference finals, but this roster might not be good enough to win the finals. And I think that is going to be something in consideration throughout the Knicks years. How do we get over the hump? How do we, one, make the finals, and then two, win it? Another thing I saw on ESPN the other day is that the Knicks could be open to trading Brunson for a Giannis or a Zion type player, another big. And I don't like that. I think Brunson is just the DNA of the Knicks. I think Giannis is definitely better than Brunson. I would still take Brunson over Zion, but still, I think he brings out the most of that building, the energy when Jalen Brunson is balling, the garden is rocking. So give me the Knicks to win the East because they make a mid-season move. I'm predicting Zion, but it could be somebody else.
I have seen reports over the offseason that if Giannis were to leave Milwaukee, it would be for the Knicks. So the Knicks could definitely be in contention for a disgruntled big name throughout the season. My question for you is, if the Knicks don't get Zion Williamson, if they keep the roster that they have right now, Do you still think they beat the Sixers?
Yes, but I think it's a lot closer. And I would see a scenario where the Sixers win. I mean, I've taken them past the Cavs and the Magic, so why can't they beat the Knicks? I think this is where their luck runs out and they run into, it's hard to win 3 series in a row where you start on the road. It's hard to win 1 series when you start on the road, let alone 2, and I have predicted that. So I think just the travel and the pure exhaustion of them grinding out a hard-fought first-round series, hard-fought second-round series, I think that also plays into it. Because I see the Knicks, I know the Pistons took them to 6 last year, but it's a virtually repeated Pistons team. I think the Knicks will have a lot more film on them. I think they will know what works and what doesn't against them. I expect them to beat the Detroit in 5, and they should beat the Celtics in 6, maybe 7. But if the Sixers are going to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, they're going to be in hard-fought series, first round, second round.
All right. For my Eastern Conference Finals, I have the Cavs versus the Magic. We actually have 2 completely different teams, so not much of a debate we can have over this. But I have the Magic's run finally coming to an end and the Cleveland Cavaliers going to the NBA Finals for the first time without LeBron Raymond James on their team. Now, Cleveland, I think this could be a very difficult matchup for them because Orlando will for sure absolutely have the matchup advantage on the wings. However, both Franz and Paolo are players who I think will have better success driving to the basket rather than pulling up for three-pointers and operating on the perimeter. And that is where Cleveland shines, with their 2 big men in Mobley and Allen being constant threats to lock down the paint. I think they match up very well with Orlando in that department. Desmond Bane will be the X factor in that series if he's able to help the Magic stretch the floor and they have to commit more bodies to the perimeter, which opens up more driving lanes for Paolo and Franz. I think this could be a competitive series. But again, that's a big if. And the Magic's notable weakness in recent years has been perimeter shooting. And I don't know if Desmond Bane will single-handedly fix that issue. As a result, I have Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and the Cleveland Cavaliers winning the East and getting to the finals.
Very, very interesting. A team I have losing in the first round, you have going to the finals. That'll be exciting. I do favor the Cleveland Cavaliers if they were to face Orlando, though. So I'll agree with that. I think they match up very well with a lot of teams, as I mentioned earlier. And didn't Cleveland beat Orlando in the playoffs last year? I mean, so we've already seen this matchup. Or was that 2 years ago?
That was 2 years ago in the first round. Cleveland last year, they beat, I think it was Miami in the first round, then they lost to Indiana in the second.
Yeah. Oh, the Celtics beat Orlando last year. That's who beat Orlando. But the Cavs did beat Orlando 2 years ago in the playoffs, and I think we would see a very similar result if they matched up again this year.
All right. Let's get on to the Western Conference if you don't have anything more to add for the East.
Nope. Let's roll.
All right, the Western Conference, the much more competitive division, where I do not have anything close to assembling chalk. So, just to go over my matchups, I have the 1 seed Thunder taking the 8 seed Mavs. I have the 2 seed Nuggets against the 7 seed Warriors, the 3 seed Rockets against the 6 seed Timberwolves, and the 4 seed Lakers against the 5 seed Spurs. So I have my top 2 seeds winning. I think it's very, very difficult to make an argument for either the Thunder or the Nuggets to be first-round exits. Even against a team with as much playoff experience and star power as the Warriors, I still do think the Nuggets with the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. I think that's a bad matchup for the Warriors. I think the Nuggets will take care of them pretty easily. And here's where I change things up a bit. I have the Timberwolves upsetting the Houston Rockets in the first round. And not just that, I have the San Antonio Spurs upsetting the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round. And, for somebody that loves upsets, you don't seem to be as big of a fan of that. But I will start with the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves the last 2 years have made the Western Conference Finals, establishing themselves as the second best team in the West. They did this both times as the 6th seed. They did this both times without home court advantage in the first or second round, beating a team that, on paper, according to the Western Conference standings, were favored. I think Anthony Edwards has proven he can constantly step up his game in the playoffs, regardless of who he's matched up against. And I don't know if Kevin Durant will single-handedly, by himself, solve the Rockets' offensive inefficiency issues in the playoffs. I think Alperen Şengün will still need another year of playoff experience, as well as other members of the Rockets' young core like Amen Thompson and Tari Eason. The Fred VanVleet injury is huge, especially at this time of the year. Fred VanVleet won a championship with the Toronto Raptors back in the day, and he was the veteran leader of the Rocket squad last year, and his absence in the playoffs will severely hurt this young up-and-coming roster. And yeah, the Timberwolves have shown they can win as an underdog. They have established themselves as the second-best team in the West, even though nobody sees them as that. And I do expect the Timberwolves to at least win one playoff series. Now, for the Spurs against the Lakers. I actually had the Lakers winning until LeBron's injury. I am very, very nervous about sciatica. This is something I have personally experienced, and it took me over a year to feel even close to 100%. It takes a toll, it hurts like a motherfucker, and it is persistent. It does not go away. And I'm worried this is something that's going to bother LeBron throughout the season, and that he's not going to be at his peak physical form. Now, LeBron will still be a contributor. He will still be probably a 20 points per game scorer. But this is going to be asking Luka Doncic to, once again, basically do what he did in his early Mavericks days and carry a team in the playoffs. Now, he's shown he's capable of that. He's put up insane playoff performances throughout his Mavericks career. But before he got his co-star in Kyrie Irving, Luka couldn't get out of the first round. And I think that's going to be very similar to what's going to happen this year. I don't think the Lakers are going to advance out of the first round. They just happen in my bracket to match up against the Spurs, that's my reasoning.
The Spurs. That's his reasoning, guys. The Spurs. All right.
It's more of a concern with the health and star power of the Lakers. I don't think the Lakers are going to advance out of the first round this year. They just happen to match up against the Spurs in my bracket. I don't think the Lakers have a single player on their roster that can defend Wembanyama. I don't think they have a single guard that can defend De'Aaron Fox. And yeah, I wouldn't take the Lakers against anybody in the first round, but I think the Spurs also especially are a very difficult matchup.
Okay. I'm just going to get to my bracket because we've been talking about the Spurs enough the last couple episodes. So my Western Conference bracket, when I was doing my regular season predictions, I solely based them on what I want to see in the playoffs. And so here's what it is. My 1-8 is Nuggets, Spurs, Wemby versus Jokic, cinema. My 4-5 is Lakers, Warriors, LeBron versus Steph, cinema. My 3-6, Rockets, Timberwolves, Ant versus KD, cinema. My 2-7, Thunder, Mavericks, defending champs against the Mavericks, healthy big three, cinema. If these matchups are true, this might be the best first round we've ever had in the Western Conference. I'm just going to say that. Our best first round ever, if those are the matchups. Now for the winners. I have a lot of chalk. I have the Nuggets, the Thunder, and the Rockets all advancing. And then I have the Warriors, my Warriors, beating the Lakers for one particular reason. The Warriors defensively are going to be significantly better than the Lakers will be defensively. The signing of Al Horford is going to help us tremendously on defense, much more so than I originally anticipated. If anyone has been following preseason basketball, the Warriors' defense looks absurd, and the lineup that includes Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, and Al Horford will not give up any easy buckets in the paint. That lineup is not giving up anything easy, and I think that will hurt the Lakers in a potential matchup because their defensive lineup of Ayton, LeBron, Luka, Austin Reeves, they're not going to be able to stop really much anybody. So I have the Warriors in a hard-fought first-round series. Now for the series that we have the same and disagreed with, you went with the Timberwolves, I went with the Rockets. One quick thing I thought of when you were mentioning the Van Vliet injury is how awesome would it be if the Rockets traded for Russell Westbrook and reunited him with Kevin Durant? How awesome would that be? I I don't know if that's really the smartest thing for Houston to do. However, with him being a former Rocket, the crowd already loves him. The fan base already loves him. He averaged a triple-double when he was in Houston. I think that Russ to the Rockets might be another team that, could throw their name in the hat if Russ is made available by Sacramento. But the one thing I did, gave the Rockets over the edge is, again, future matchups. In this bracket of mine, if the Rockets win, they would play the Thunder in the second round. Who doesn't want to see Kevin Durant go play the defending champs, the team that he screwed over in 2016 by leaving them? So I just think that from a narrative perspective, again, I think the Timberwolves and Rockets are very evenly matched. I do think that Kevin Durant will help them fix a lot of their efficiency problems. Şengün should be able to have some pressure off of him because of playing with a guy like Kevin Durant. I mean, he's going to get easier shots than he's ever had in his life. Amen Thompson, again, I predicted him to win Defensive Player of the Year. If he's that good, he will be able to guard Anthony Edwards for a 7-game series. If he's that good. So all my predictions put together, plus the possible matchup of Kevin Durant returning to Oklahoma City in the playoffs, I have the Rockets advancing.
Now, we have very different matchups, so I don't have a ton to say about yours. The one thing I will say is that if the Rockets wanted Russell Westbrook, why didn't they sign him in the last 3 months? As awesome as it would be to see Russ and KD reunite, that you had 3.5 months to sign Russell Westbrook. You're not going to want to give up assets mid-season or at any point of the season when you could have signed it for free over the summer. I just don't think that's a gamble the Rockets are going to want to take when they're trying to develop this young core into a championship level roster. That's a hasty win now move that I don't think the Rockets are in any rush to make. They've already done it with Kevin Durant.
Yeah, but they were banking on having Van Vliet for most of the summer. I mean, Van Vliet's injury is relatively recent, and they were banking on having him, and now they don't. And I think they're scrambling to find other options. If the point guards they have are not performing to the level they want them to perform, they will be calling teams asking about veterans. And you keep talking about people trading assets for Westbrook. He is not expensive. Like, you can trade a late round pick to get Russell Westbrook these days. So I think contending teams will be more eager to grab a guy if they need him. And again, that was just a hypothetical, but I think the Rockets are definitely in the realm of possibility for trading for a guy like Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible, but you've already invested a lot of recent draft capital into young guards, such as Amen Thompson, and most recently Reed Thompson. Is it Thompson or Stevens? Why can't I remember this guy's name? Reed Thompson, the third pick of last year.
Shepherd.
The entire time. That's it, Shepherd. Yeah, Reed Shepherd. I don't know why I can remember his name because he spent all of last season in the motherfucking G League. But yeah, you spent the third overall pick on Reed Shepherd. I expect him to get some run in his second season. If not, this is going to be like an all-time draft bust. It'll be picking Reed Shepherd over the Rookie of the Year, and Stephon Castle will be one hell of a miss for the Houston Rockets if Shepherd does not pan out.
Yeah, I agree. That would be a terrible bust. But you still need depth. And Russ may be on his way to reuniting with KD. And could you imagine both of them going back to Oklahoma City for the playoffs? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that would.
Are you kidding me?
Okay. Picking your Western Conference based on narratives is definitely a bold take. However, that Rockets Thunder theoretical second round matchup would be, in my opinion, one of the most hyped up and anticipated playoff series in NBA history. That would be truly incredible.
Just think about this. When they're running out of the locker room, right? They wouldn't know to cheer Russ or boo Kevin Durant. They wouldn't know what to do. They wouldn't know what to do with themselves. They would not know what to do with themselves.
It would be madness. It would be absolute.
It would be absolute cinema.
And well, I have the Rockets losing the first round, but I would love to see the season played out in the way that you said it would. That would be storybook.
Yeah, because all the Western Conference teams are so evenly matched, in my opinion. Like, they're all in separate tiers, but all of them are competitive and all of them have championship aspirations, which is just not the same for the East. I just decided, you know what? We're just going to pick what we want to happen. And this would be the greatest playoff run, in my opinion, from a narrative perspective, if it came like this. The matchups, the storylines, the history, just everything would be great. Greatness.
It would, absolutely. So, I want to hear what you have for the second round. What narratives have you concocted here?
All right, so narratives, I have Nuggets Warriors in the 1-5 matchup, and very similar to what you said. I think you had the Nuggets Warriors in the first round. I think Denver's a really bad matchup for Golden State. And I have Denver advancing to the Western Conference Finals over Golden State in the second round. Again, Denver is my 1 seed. I have Jokic as the MVP. Adelman is the coach of the year. I mean, I am so high on Denver. I've said multiple times, I think they had the best offseason of any team in the NBA. And it will be very interesting to see how this team gels. But Jamal Murray and Jokic have proved to be enough to win a championship. And I think the roster around them this season could be the best it's been since Jokic became an MVP caliber player. So watch out for Denver. I'm telling you, they're going to be good. They're going to be upset that they couldn't beat Oklahoma City last year because they were the team that came the closest to beating Oklahoma City. And that brings me to my other matchup, the rematch. I have the Thunder defeating the Rockets in the second round, which sets up an absolute juggernaut battle between Denver and Oklahoma City, who I think are clearly the two best teams in the West right now. And I think if they play up to their potential, they are kind of locks for the Western Conference Finals.
I agree with you there. While the matchups are different, I do have the same two teams coming out. I have the Thunder ending the Spurs Cinderella run, and I have the Nuggets once again emerging victorious over the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves did make the Western Conference Finals last year, but I think a case can easily be argued the Nuggets were the second best team in the West, considering how poorly the Timberwolves played the Thunder, whereas the Nuggets took them to a 7-game series. So I think that's very clear cut, showing that the Nuggets last year were a better team than the Timberwolves. And the Nuggets, like you said, had one of, if not the best off seasons in the league. They only got better. And the Timberwolves kind of stood pat and are relying on internal growth. Not a bad strategy when you have somebody as talented as Anthony Edwards, but not a strategy that's going to get you past the newly revamped Denver Nuggets. In terms of Thunder Spurs, talking about narratives, I mean, Chet Holmgren versus Victor Wembanyama in a 7-game playoff series would be a very compelling narrative to follow. But the Oklahoma City Thunder won 67 games last year, where they had the highest net rating in NBA history. They won the championship. I cannot make a case for the Spurs against the Thunder, unfortunately. I think the Thunder will make quick work.
Okay, quick work. Quick work is interesting, seeing as that you predicted Wemby to be the MVP. So, do you think if Wemby is as good as an MVP level player, he won't be able to push that series to 6 or 7 games?
Oh, I do. I think. Wemby is going to show out regardless. It doesn't matter who you're defending Wemby with; he's going to get his numbers. But I would take Shea as the best player in the series, okay? And I would take Wemby as the second best player in the series. And then the players 3 through 8, 3 through 9, maybe even 3 through 10 all belong, in terms of playoff experience and playoff success, all belong to the Oklahoma City Thunder. De'Aaron Fox could come into play, but he has not won a playoff series in his career. He's coming off injury last year. I need to see it from De'Aaron Fox before I'm willing to take him over a championship Thunder squad.
Hey, you can't talk about playoff success without talking about my guy Harrison Barnes. All right, don't sleep on Harrison Barnes now. Come on. He's not better than the 9th best player on the Thunder. Don't get that twisted, okay? He is not better than Aaron Wiggins on the Thunder bench. He's not better than him, especially when it comes to playoff success. Harrison Barnes is better. He's better.
Debatably, maybe prime Harrison Barnes, but
yes,
I've never thought I'd say prime Harrison Barnes in my life. But current Harrison Barnes now, You could very well make a case for AJ Mitchell over current Harrison Barnes. I would hear that out.
Harrison Barnes' role on his championship roster was a hell of a lot more impressive than Aaron Wiggins' role on his championship roster. That's all I have to say.
That's prime Harrison Barnes, not 31-year-old Harrison Barnes.
If the Spurs are going to make the second round, they're going to need prime Harrison Barnes. Trust.
No, they're going to need all-star De'Aaron Fox. They're going to need Max Devin Vassell. And they're going to need Jeremy Sohan, who should be able to defend 1 through 4. That's what they're going to need. Harrison Barnes, I don't think is going to play much of a factor. I think he's going to be coming off the bench this year for the Spurs. And yes, he's going to he's a veteran. He's established winner in the NBA. He's going to have his successful games, but he's not going to be one of the focal points of the Spurs this season in the regular season or the playoffs.
Probably true, but he's going to have one game where he's like, wow, Harrison Barnes, what a gamer. What a gamer.
True. He will have one random game in the playoff where he drops 35 on like 70% shooting, and we're going to be like, wow, this is what the Warriors had with Steph Curry.
Yep. One game. Trust. One game. All right. So we have the
Thunder Nuggets Western Conference Finals.
Yeah. Let's preview it right now. This is an absolutely star-studded matchup, and I'm going to go back to a narrative with my prediction. If Shea beats Jokic for 2 straight playoffs, people will be yapping about how Shea is the best player in the league. Well, folks, he's just not. He's not better than Jokic, and it's not happening. Jokic is going to the NBA Finals again this year, and he will be taking on the Knicks, and I'll save my prediction once we get through Alex's Western Conference. But I like this Denver team a lot more than I like Oklahoma City, and that's crazy to say. I think, unfortunately, we learned a lot about Chet Holmgren last year in the playoffs. He is not the guy that the Thunder paid for. And again, he can take a next step. He's still young. But Chet Holmgren making the type of money he's making to guard Jokic in a 7-game series? Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. And Jamal Murray is a proven playoff performer. Not to forget, he's teammates with Shea in international basketball, like we mentioned earlier. He should know a thing or two about Shea and how to guard him. And I think that may have come into a factor last year, and it could come into effect this year. And again, the Nuggets offseason was truly spectacular, adding Cameron Johnson, getting Bruce Brown back. I mean, that was huge for them. Their depth is amazing. The Thunder, it is so difficult to repeat in the NBA. It's difficult to repeat in any sport, but the Thunder will go through things that they haven't gone through in the Shea era. They will encounter different matchups, different defenses, different schemes to attack their own defense. And I think the Nuggets get it done in a hard-fought 7-game series. And another thing, last year, the Game 7 was played in Oklahoma City. In my scenario, I have the Nuggets as the 1 seed, meaning Game 7 would be played in Denver. That type of thing matters when making predictions like this. So give me Jokic and the Nuggets in 7 to represent the West.
Okay. Interesting take. You are picking against the reigning NBA MVP, the reigning Finals MVP, who just carried his team to a championship, a team who set the record for the highest net point differential in NBA history, and who won 67 games in the regular season. That's who you're picking against.
Sure am.
Well, I'm doing the same thing because Denver is going to the finals.
That's right.
Now, this is one of the most evenly, on paper, this series seems so even, and it's so hard to decipher one team from the other. I do have the Thunder as the 1 seed and the Nuggets as the 2 seed. However, I think the X factor, like you said, is going to be Chet Holmgren and the lack of production that he has in comparison to the contract he earns. I think Chet's struggles in the playoffs last year were extremely telling because it wasn't just one area that he struggled in. Chet was struggling from the perimeter, was struggling inside the paint against more physical big men, was struggling on the defensive end. He couldn't guard anybody. I mean, Chet Holmgren in the playoffs last year was a straight-up net negative for the Thunder. If they lost the NBA Finals, it would have, 100% of blame would have been placed on Chet Holmgren. It would have been nasty to see the hate that he got this offseason. Luckily for him, that didn't happen. But when you're going against someone like Nikola Jokic with a vastly improved Denver team, that kind of thing matters. I think that's the matchup that the Nuggets will constantly take advantage of throughout the series. And like you said, I think it'll be a close fought 7-game series. It'll be storybook. It'll go down as one of the greatest playoff series of all time. But gut feeling right now, and we were talking about, like you said, it is so difficult to repeat as champion in the NBA. Like this is the longest stretch that the NBA has gone without a repeat champion. And I have thought in recent years that these recent champions would establish their dynasty. I thought that the Denver Nuggets would have become a dynasty after they won. I thought the Celtics were a budding dynasty with Tatum and Brown after they won their ring. But whether it was injuries or just other teams stepping up in the playoffs, neither of those teams even advanced to the conference finals. So I think in this day of age, the age of parity, the age of the second apron and the salary cap, it is so difficult to repeat as NBA champion. And despite the Thunder seeming like the obvious pick to repeat, the past decade of NBA history tells me not to pick a repeat champion, and that's why I'm going with Denver.
Yeah, I mean, not often do the two of us agree on this show, so it feels good, feels good to not have to debate something, and everything you said is true. I think Denver is just, a couple plays here or there going to be better than the Thunder this year. It's going to help them secure home court, and I think it will help them in a 7-game series. So that brings us to our NBA Finals predictions, the moment we've all been waiting for. And for me, in terms of chalk, I have both my 1 seeds advancing. I believe Alex has both his 1 seeds advancing. No, he does not. The Nuggets were not his 1 seed.
Nuggets were my 2.
Yeah. So I have both my 1 seeds being the Knicks and the Nuggets advancing. And I can't pick Denver to beat Oklahoma City and then lose to the Knicks. I can't do that. So we're going with Jokic and the Nuggets to win the NBA Finals. It's going to be more heartbreak for New York, reaching the top of the mountain only for Denver to kick them right back down to where everyone else is, watching at home. I think Jokic is my pick to win Finals MVP. That's not, anything outlandish, but Jokic to win Finals MVP and the Nuggets to win the 2025-26 NBA championship.
Yeah, I start off this episode by saying I think that we're going to have different champions. I was wrong about that because I also have the Denver Nuggets taking home the championship this year. And honestly, I had the matchup against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I don't think that series is going to be particularly close. I picked Cleveland to make the finals because I believe they have a matchup advantage against a lot of teams in the East. Well, against the Nuggets, I think the Nuggets are the worst possible matchup for the Cavaliers. I think Jamal Murray is the best guard that I have the Celtics facing on their run to the finals, and he is going to feast against Darius Garland. And yes, the Cavs do have Mobley and Jarrett Allen on the defensive end, but you have Nikola Jokic. Nobody can guard Nikola Jokic. I'm sorry. He's the best player in the NBA. He's going to get his 30-point triple-double regardless of whoever's on him. And if these two teams were to match up, frankly, I see the series being over in 5 games maximum. I think the Nuggets' most difficult matchup will be in the Western Conference Finals. And I essentially think the winner of that series, the Nuggets-Thunder series, will go on to win the championship.
Yeah, I think those two teams are probably the best 2 teams in the league right now, and it's a shame that they play in the same conference, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And another thing we agree on is the champion. I mean, that's absurd. If the Nuggets win the finals, who do you think would take home Finals MVP?
I mean, picking anybody but Jokic would be setting myself up for failure, so I'm going to go with the obvious choice in the 3-time MVP.
Yeah, I think Jokic is going to have a season unlike any other. He's just...
Let's rephrase that question then. Besides Jokic, who do you think on the Nuggets has the best chance of winning Finals MVP?
Aaron Gordon. And I think that because...
I like that. I like that a lot,
And
actually.
I think that because he'll have to guard the other team's best player. And I think he'll get... If he wins it, it'll be similar to Andre Iguodala winning Finals MVP. It will be something like that. Where, he doesn't have the best stats. He doesn't, make the most impact. But for 7 hard-fought games, Aaron Gordon is guarding, in my scenario, Jalen Brunson. or he's guarding Cat. You know, and he just absolutely like locks in and, you know, forces terrible numbers from them. That would be the only thing I could think of other than Jokic. I think he would have a better chance of winning over a guy like Jamal Murray, because Jamal Murray, all his stats are, you know, dependent on offense, but Jokic also is dependent on offense. So if Aaron Gordon dominates on defense, I think you could make an argument for someone like him to win Finals MVP.
That's fair. I didn't think of Gordon, but I like that take. My pick would have been Murray, and my sleeper, I didn't think of Gordon, but for a lot of the similar reason that you were saying would be Christian Braun. Christian Braun, if he can, like I said, I have the series going to 5, and in shorter series, they're typically more rewarding to a player that has 1 or 2 big games, right? You don't need to be the best player for 7 games. You only need to have 1 or 2 good games, and you could have a clear argument as the best player in a series. If Christian Braun is able to have one 30-point game while playing strong defense throughout the series on Donovan Mitchell, I think you could very well make a case for the award. Again, big dark horse. It'd be stupid to pick him over Nikola Jokic, so I'm not going to. But yeah, that's just where my head's at.
Yeah, I think with a Cavs matchup, Brown would probably be the guy assigned with Mitchell, and that makes a lot of sense to pick him other than Jokic. So I agree with you on that.
All right. Any other comments about the Western Conference you want to make?
No, other than I'm excited for the playoffs already. Like, doing this whole bracket just got me excited for the matchups and like what we could see in the West. I hope everyone's healthy come playoff time. I hope, you know, LeBron's back and Kevin Durant's healthy, and just looking at these, like, oh, so great. So great. And the East just does not excite me as much. Like, it just doesn't.
Before we get into our final segment, I will say, as a basketball fan, I hope your playoff predictions are spot on, 100% accurate, because wow, what a playoffs that would be. But with that being said, we'll move on to our final segment. Last week, Max gave me a couple 2 truths and a lie themed around the NBA, and this week I will be returning the favor. So we have 3 different ones that, in my opinion, get harder as we go along, obviously. And I try to have each of them as kind of themed, kind of around the same like topic. Just I don't know. I think you'll see. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think you'll see what I mean when I get into it. So, Max, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I don't know what to expect, but I'm locked in. I gotta lock in. I'm ready.
Okay. The first one. Nikola Jokic led the league in rebounds last season. Trae Young led the league in assists last season. Anthony Edwards led the league in made threes last season.
Okay, is this, quick question, is this total or per game?
This is per game.
Okay, thank you. All right, so Jokic rebounds, Trae Young assists, Anthony Edwards threes. Is that correct? All right,
Okay, sorry. Anthony Edwards is for the season. Most threes on the season. Stephen Curry actually averaged most threes per game. Well, fuck. I just spoiled that.
Yeah, we in his head. That's a full court press if I've ever seen one. Yeah, that's a full court press. He gives me.
All
right,
turned the ball over in the backcourt.
He
That's
did.
crazy.
He did. And if I can get this right, I'm gonna dunk on his head. All right, so I already knew Ant was correct anyway, so you didn't really help me out much. I already knew Ant was correct, but I just love that you gave me that answer anyway. That was hilarious. All right, so Jokic led the league in rebounds. I'm trying to think who else that could have been. There's just a lot of guys per game, like just a lot. Trae Young assists is really tough. Like, who would have had more assists than Trae Young per game? Well, that's tough. I like the theme you're going with. I think that's cool. I'm gonna lock in that the lie is that Jokic led the league in rebounds. I think that's false.
And you are correct. That is the lie. Domantas Sabonis was the league's leading rebounder per game last year. Jokic came in at a solid second place. Young led the league in assists, and Anthony Edwards made the most threes in the league, as I have already spoiled. 1 for 1. Great start. It's only going to get harder from here. His second one is Golden State Warriors. Where do they play in college? One of these is not true. Al Horford played at the University of Florida. Quinton Post played at Mississippi State University. Pat Spencer played at the University of Iowa.
Quentin Post played at Boston College. So that's wrong.
Actually, you are wrong there. Quinton Post did graduate from Boston College, but he transferred from Mississippi State early in his career. The lie is Pat Spencer, who played at Northwestern after he finished playing lacrosse at Loyola Marymount. Max, that's your team, man. I thought that was a given for you. But Quinton Post started his basketball career at Mississippi State University.
Can you say again what you said, like when you read it to me the first time?
Yeah. Al Horford played for the University of Florida. Quinton Post played for Mississippi State University. Pat Spencer played for the University of Iowa.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, all I
Any
knew is
thoughts?
all I knew is that we drafted him out of Boston College and he was a late round pick. I didn't know he played for Mississippi State. And Pat Spencer is a bum. He's fun to watch, but he's a bum. And I didn't know where the hell he went to college. And because I knew that Quinton Post went to Boston College, I assumed that was wrong. And that's my own fault for assuming things. But I would not take back my guess because in my head I was right there. I was right there.
Yep. See, it doesn't matter whether or not you were right in your head because on paper and officially you were wrong.
Okay.
Unfortunately for you. One of two. Let's see if you can finish out with a winning record.
This guy.
With the last true truth and a lie. Tim Duncan won more MVP awards than Kevin Garnett. Steve Nash won back-to-back MVPs. And Dwayne Wayne led the league in scoring one time in his career.
That's tough. I feel like Dwayne Wade, did he lead the league more than once? That's kind of like where my head's at because he definitely did once, I think. The year he won the MVP, he had to have led the league in scoring. But did he do it more than once is the question. Duncan has 2 MVPs. Garnett 1. So I think that one's true. And what was the third one? Can you say that again?
Steve Nash won back-to-back MVPs.
Jesus. That's a tough one. This is, in my head, just going through them, this is definitely the hardest one. I'm between Wade and Nash, and Nash, did he win back-to-back MVPs is the question. And Wade, did he ever lead the league in scoring? Tough. I'm going to go with my gut and say that Steve Nash did not win back-to-back MVPs.
And the answer is to be determined. And let me explain why. The first 2 I created myself, but this third one I pulled from ChatGPT, just copied and pasted it. Didn't even look at the question until right now. And it is saying the lie is Tim Duncan has won more MVP. It's saying that, which is not the lie. Tim Duncan has won 2. Kevin Garnett has won 1. So ChatGPT is wrong. And kids, that's a lesson. Don't use AI. Use your brain. Don't use AI. So because ChatGPT fumbled that so bad, you didn't mess it up. We'll get you another one.
So Nash actually won back-to-back though?
Yeah, Nash won back-to-back. And
Wow.
Dwayne Wade led the league in scoring one time in his career.
I figured
it's saying the lie was Duncan and Garnett,
which is false. That is
Duncan
not
did win more.
true.
Yeah, that is objectively false. Duncan won 2, Garnett won 1. And ChatGPT say both won 1. Get out of here, kids! Don't use AI. It doesn't know shit. We'll get you a better one because that was honestly embarrassing. We can't leave off on incorrect information. All right. The Denver Nuggets originally played in the ABA. Hakeem Olajuwon was drafted ahead of Michael Jordan. And the Seattle Supersonics never made it to the NBA Finals.
Okay, I know Hakeem was drafted over Michael Jordan. I know that one's true. The Supersonics, did they ever make the finals? Wait, say it again. Did they or did they not make the finals?
Yeah. The Seattle Supersonics never made it to the NBA Finals.
Never made it.
And this isn't counting Oklahoma City. This is when they were based
just
in Seattle.
Okay. Yeah. I figured. Okay. So Seattle did not make the finals. That's the statement. I think that's true. I don't know when they. Oh no, I think that no. Say the first one again.
The Denver Nuggets originally played in the ABA.
Yeah, that's way too random to be false. I'm going with the Sonics did make a finals.
And that is true. The Supersonics won the 1979 NBA championship. So, not counting the one that ChatGPT got wrong, you finished 2 of 3. Same thing I finished with when I did 2 truths and a lie. So, I would say solid performance.
Yeah, thank you. And the one I got wrong was, I'm not going to say ticky tack because it wasn't, but I was in my head, I was right there. I had it. He played for Boston College.
That was one I set up intentionally for deceitful purposes.
You got me. I should have thought more about Pat Spencer, but I was like, I don't know where he went to school, and I know he went to Boston College, so I figured he was wrong. But
Pat Spencer actually started off playing lacrosse at University of Loyola.
I did know that.
Transferring to Northwestern.
I did know that.
Play basketball.
Yeah. So, all right, very, very good. 2 truths and a lie. We hope you guys like that segment. I'm sure we'll bring it back at some point. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. Stay tuned. Very soon after we post this episode, we will be getting a college football mid-season review where me and Alex will be discussing the absolute atrocities of our schools. Stay tuned. And we will catch you in the next episode. Peace out.
What a sad way to leave off the episode. Fuck James Franklin. Peace out.